if you go that method, it's going to save the client, that extra application to council. That's going to save them those extra reports. It's going to save them all the bits and pieces that, otherwise they would have spent again to do the same application later. G'day guys, welcome to the MTDC Lounge. This is a podcast that breaks down everything you need to know about designing and building your ultimate home and what to expect. Whether you're a DIY renovator, a budding developer, or everything in between, we'll dive into the building journey, touching on what to expect, what's next, and how to go about it. We'll hear from a heap of experienced consultants and trades about all aspects. So let's get stuck in. Welcome to the lounge. Good evening, guys, and welcome to a very special episode tonight. I've got Mitch here on the bean bags. Thanks for joining us on the lounge again.
Pretty comfy this week.
Yeah. Well, so we're a couple of apps in now, so the guys have got to see our faces and they've got to know and love, I guess, all the things that we do, and we're getting a bit of great feedback, I think, and we're getting an opportunity to answer some questions. And I guess today's episode is, all about what we've been asked and all the frequently asked questions, and if we can please explain.
Yep, 100%. Like whether it's from site visits that we've done, or clients asking us questions, or from the podcast itself. It'd be good to shed some light on everything.
Yeah. So we've got a big bucket here, and we can just get cracking, shall we? All right. So the first one that we have today. Yeah. So we get a lot. Why do we need a contour survey? Get it so many times now. We did address it. I think it was probably in the first and second episodes, and part of the getting the reports. I recommend personally. I recommend getting contour surveys straight away, simply because you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with your designs. You can't go wrong with your heights, your next door neighbours, trees, anything that the guys can't pick up on site. Yeah,
well, you're going to get a good idea of everything of your site, especially if you're doing, if you're doing a renovation or a new build, really. The contour survey is going to make sure you know where your boundaries are, how close you want to stay away from your boundaries, or if there's any other things on site that you need to be aware of. I think it's do you need a contour survey? Generally, for a reno, if you're extending the footprint, yes, like it saves a lot of time and heartache down the track if you go ahead without a survey, and then all of a sudden you're in construction and the guys are uncovering something that wasn't quite documented on the plans because the survey wasn't there to support them. So
a contour survey showing the fall of the land and everything that's actually on the plans there is a nice and easy digital format file that we can get to put on our plans to make sure everything's designed correctly and as it shows exactly on that contour survey plan. And for the cost of $1,800 to $2,400, it's peace of mind that you won't get back.
All right, a design trend that you hate and one that you love. Let's get some opinions out there.
Yeah, you first.
One that I love. I actually quite like the Hamptons, or even the cottage type look.
Did you say love?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Like I know it's been done, but in my opinion, I think there's an essence of timelessness with Hamptons. You do see it everywhere you go, but to a degree, I think you probably see it everywhere you go for a reason as well. Hamptons, it ties into more like the Australiana type look. I think that's what I love.
Yeah. So we tackled that one. I think it was on a couple of weeks back with the designing with Bree. Hamptons definitely have a spot in that Australian design and how everything's going now. So sure. I think it has its place. Definitely think it has its place. Myself, I think one of my favorite designs at the moment, and it's a big thing that's coming through. The Scandi huts. I like the Scandi huts. I like the Scandi huts, the Palm Springsy kind of look. The Scandi huts, for those at home who don't know, they're the A-frames. They're the big straight walls. They're the parapets in some cases, high peak roofs, and then usually there's a big space underneath, the entrance or the back area, and you usually have a few materials. Usually timbers, or they usually some kind of cladding or something like that. And I think it's just a really nice, sleek, minimalist way to kind of have a really nice house and a really open space.
You can get a lot of really tall voids with that as well. So doubling your space really open up a lot as well.
Yeah, very very suitable for lofty spaces. It's particularly if you want that upstairs living, and being a dad of three, you got to have, like, I want my own space, and parents' retreats need their own spaces, and what's a better space to have a parents' retreat or a parents' room up on the top level while you're looking down on the kids running amok.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you got for a hate?
That one's a bit harder.
Is there any design aspects that you don't like to do of any of the kind of designs?
To be honest, like the what I don't like seeing is you can sometimes tell when a design has come together and it hasn't really been thought about enough to be cohesive with the entire building. I think it's more not really design style, but it's additions that have been added on that go against the original house, that almost fight against its own look.
The tacked on skillion roofs and the flat lean-to roofs that have like a hip or something like that.
Yeah, or even
force box gutters.
Yeah. Things where it looks like it's been added on for the sake of just gaining space, which is good because that's why we add the space. But I think making sure that it ties into what you've already got, or at least it gives you design with purpose. I think, more of a design. Yeah, or sometimes you've got really small windows or things like that on front facades that it's obviously for a bedroom or a walk-in robe, something really small. It's like there's things like that you see around that you could go, right, there's a better way that could have been done, where it's dressing up the facade a little bit, having something hidden behind there, or giving more purpose, because even a blank wall can look quite nice if you know how to dress it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Picture recesses, niches, a bit of lighting goes a long way, which is
even landscaping too.
Landscaping's huge.
Incorporating that in as well. So
yeah. Look, I completely agree. I think having misplaced windows, or windows that haven't been really thought about, chucked in walk-in robes, for instance. Can't stand a window in a walk-in robe. That bugs me. I completely agree. I think afterthought renovations that haven't been thought out appropriately, I think ruins a space. I completely agree. I think hate is a very strong word.
I think I dodged the question a little bit.
I think you did, but I think hate's a strong word. It's not that I hate it. I think again, we've spoken about it before, but I think the Hamptons thing and the timber details and things like that, while they are beautiful and I think they have a place, I think it's been done a little bit. While I appreciate that there's a heritage requirement, or there's a space and a time that a Hamptons design will be appropriate, I think if someone comes up and they're in the middle of the city, or they're trying to fall, like particularly Merriweather, you know what I mean? Like at the moment, Merriweather's becoming very contemporary, very modern. It's got a lot of very very straight lines, very very modern spaces.
Context comes a lot into
so.
it. Where you are could really influence what's going to stick out in a good way, or what's going to stick out in a bad way as well.
Yeah, and look, like I'm all about having a little bit of uniqueness about yourselves and things like that. But I mean, there's got to be a limit. There's got to be a limit. I'm a big fan of the open spaces. I'm a big fan of open living, dining, kitchen spaces, which is a very constant feeling of I guess that modern Hamptons and things like that. But at the end of the day, if we're looking for the timber details that is, I guess, expected of the Hampton space, I think it's just done. I think it's done. I think moving into that modern space and using like our blocks are getting smaller. It's not appropriate for the wide Hamptons eaves. The setback requirements, all that kind of stuff is just like, sure, Hamptons all day out in rural spaces, absolutely, totally run with it. But while we're building up, suburban areas, while we're pushing out outside of the city, I think it's just done. I think we pay attention a little bit more to some neater or nicer ways to finish a window, or at least put some awnings or some shading over the windows. But I just think there's maybe an evolution, or I guess next steps, I think. All right. G'day, guys. Just quickly, if you're finding this podcast info relevant to you, then I'd like to quickly talk to you about what we do at MT Design Collective. You hear us talk all the time about the importance of solid, detailed home design practices, so that you're not left with extra fees, delays, or unexpected costs in building your ultimate home. Here at MTDC, we design homes and provide plans that builders love to build and councils love to approve. If you're looking at a renovation, a new build, or alteration, then we'd love to help you work out the next steps forward. Book a free, no obligation chat with us, and we'll come out to your site, as it's the only way to truly get authentic, no bullshit advice. Link is in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. Why is my window leaking only when there is a heavy rain, or where there's heavy rain? Okay, that's a funny one. All right, so why is your window leaking? I would dare say because it wasn't put in properly. No, so there is a construction method, obviously, of putting windows in properly. All windows need to be flashed. They're all going to be fixed properly. There's architraves around the edges. There's sealing that needs to go in. There is a flashing underneath the window sill that is actually there to help the window drain the water. So there's holes inside the window frames. So when the water gets in there, because water will get in there, through the frame, the water will seep out onto the flashing, and then they'll go through the cavity and go out.
Yeah, like I can speak firsthand. At my place, I've got a sunroom that's got some windows in there, and anytime it downpours with rain, the water comes in, and 100% what's happened is when the windows were installed, the flashing wasn't put in properly or something like that.
Yeah. Is it leaking underneath the window, or is it through at where it opens and closes?
Underneath the window.
Yeah, right.
So it's where the shutter's not coming in through the sliding window, not coming through any of that. It's actually underneath the window frame itself.
Yeah, right.
I didn't put the window in either. It was like that when I bought it.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so it would be the flashing. It'd be I guess all of the material underneath the studs and exactly how it's been installed, depending obviously where the water is coming through, or kind of what the damage is. Because what might happen is the water might be coming through the head of the window, and then might be coming down the sides, and then you have to take the arcs off, and you have to kind of.
It's usually fixed.
Absolutely.
I mean, sometimes things do fail, like old timber windows will, corrode or rot or things like that. So, I mean, you can fix them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, we had that conversation with the chippy. I think it was maybe the third ep, and we discussed the ways to kind of keep an eye out for like all the rotted windows and the bubbling of the paints and things like that. So they, there are definitely ways that you can pay attention to it, and I think at the end of the day, get it checked. So you should probably do that. Yeah. And then I guess. Yeah, because obviously, if it's a timber stud behind, if it's a timber stud in the wall and not aluminium, there's going to be damage. There's going to be water. There's going to be water rot. There's going to be stuff that you need to really pay attention to, and it could become a bigger problem if it's not dealt with sooner rather than later.
Yeah. When purchasing a property with the intent to design, what can destroy my constructability before I start?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
That's a great question. Heritage every day. If it's in a high heritage zone,
it's going to limit you
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. Fire's a huge one. Fire. Depending on what you want to do with the block too. If it's just a reno, or if it's a knockdown rebuild, like there's a few questions that kind of come into play there. But yeah, my number one problem when buying a block would be heritage, and I guess any unapproved works.
Yeah.
So that's all that should be captured by your conveyancer. So anytime a house is bought, do you know what I've actually learned over the last couple of years, and while I've been helping people, I guess, design, you can't ask enough questions. And if if you ask the real estate a question, or if you ask the conveyancer a question, they have to answer it, and they have to answer it truthfully. That we've had a number of clients now where they've gone out, they've bought a block, they haven't asked a question because to be fair, they don't know the questions to ask. But all they needed to do was say, "Hey, have you had a problem with this block, or why is this block been sitting here and a house hasn't been built on it?" They have to tell you. They have to say, "Well, this is a goat track. It's RU2. It's a rural zone block in an RU2 zone, and you can't actually build anything on it." Like, we've had a poor bloke with us for 4.5 years that we've been fighting this battle. He's got an RU2 zone in the middle of an R2 area, which is also RU2 is a rural zoning. So there's specific rules for RU2, and R2 is low to medium residential space, which is normal for a suburban area. They just don't relate to each other. So what old mate next door can do is build whatever he wants in terms of houses. He can put granny flats and all the bits and pieces. They can be detached. Not in RU2 zones. You can't do multi dwellings. You can't, unless they're attached, of course. You can't do multi dwellings in RU2. You can't do granny flats in RU2. There's a whole thing. But anyway, if he just simply asked the question of the real estate agent or the conveyancer, is there a problem with this block, or why hasn't it sold yet? They have to answer.
Yeah, sometimes it can be too good to be true. Like if the price is pretty cheap, and you go, "This is an absolute steal. Why isn't anyone else jumping on this?" Might be worth just look a little bit closer.
A bit of due diligence every time. Like, it doesn't hurt to go and have a quick look at because there's free information on council websites. You go and put your house in the council website, find out if there's been any applications on the house. If they're old renovations, then there are things that you can do to get that information. But these are the things that you can find. If it's a blank block, you can find out why it's been there empty for so long. Sometimes it's easements. Sometimes it's they've got a dirty great big Telstra cable running through the middle of it. We've dealt with that before. Yeah. That surprised all of us because nobody knew it was there. But yeah, I think due diligence, ask the questions, get the answers. Yep.
I think my I'll take it from a slightly different angle. The things that I think will come front of mind of people who are looking at designing, developing alterations, additions, like from a report perspective, you want to look out for mine subsidence. If you're in a guideline 1 area particularly, means no slab on ground construction can really. A lot of these things won't limit your design, what you can do, but will hurt your budget.
It would take a hit to the engineering and things like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So mine subsidence. If you're in a bushfire zone, if you are in a bushfire zone, are you close enough? It's going to be in a flame zone. Again, construction costs and things like that. Flood zone. That's high up there because it can really quickly limit what you can do with either if you're in a flood zone, for example, you can't build at all within that flood zone. Oh, sorry, not flood zone. Floodway.
Yeah.
Can't build at all within the floodway.
Because that's where all the water flows through. So that's a council nominated space for the water to come through. That's a floodway. Flood waters are expected to pass through in that space.
Yeah. So it can really limit what you can or can't do with your flood. So I'd be if you know that you are in a flood zone, I'd be finding out more about that.
Your minimum floor heights. There are 100% rules around the flood spaces. Like we can break it down a lot more in another app. But I mean, particular for flood zones, anything more than 50 square meters is usual. That you're allowed to keep that same floor height. But once you step over that floor height,
come up to the new level.
You have to come up, and absolutely. Bushfire zones, flood zones, heritage, mine subsidence. These are all major things that hit you in the pocket, and you won't really know until you're halfway through.
But the good thing with those ones in particular, they're really easy to find out. The free block report. Sometimes you might need to pay, or if you are buying in particular, they'll have the contract of sale there, so they'll have it there, and that information will be available. So those things you can look at. If something says yes, it is in this area, might be worth going, okay, well, let's find out a little bit more about, is it actually a problem, or is it just something I've got to be aware of?
Well, in a couple of episodes' time, I'm going to break that down a little bit more for clients and homeowners with an actual insurance person. So
Yep.
so we'll talk about what that means for like insurance costs and things like that as well. Even if you're not doing anything to the house, anything in regards to the bushfires or the floods or the mine subsidence boosts that insurance costs all the way through the roof anyway. So we'll break that down. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Yeah. Nice one. That was a good question. That was a great question. I don't have an easement. Where do I drain my stormwater? That's a good one. If you're okay, so if your block's running away from your road and you don't have any easements on your block, so when I mean running away, I mean high side road, low side back of the block. There's there's only a couple of options here, right? So obviously you can put your if your gutter in your roof is high enough to charge your lines, like, or charge your downpipes to the road, that's okay. Like, there's an answer there. You can just charge it straight to the road.
Best case scenario.
Best case scenario. Yeah. That's right. And that goes the same with the water tank, right? It's like, as long as the top of the water tank is high enough to charge those lines to the road, there's no problem. Like, we'll get away with it. But let's talk worst case scenario. I think that's what this client's probably or listeners probably asked. What do we do? Worst case scenario. We've had a number of cases, certainly recently, particularly in Lake Macquarie. We couldn't get the fall to the road. We couldn't get the charge to the road.
Way too steep. Too steep.
So the way we dealt with that, I think we got away with a pump. I think we got a pump to the road for that one. I think we did.
Yeah, I think what I've been finding is if it's for a subdivision or a dual occupancy, something where you're adding quite a lot of density to the same block, you're more likely to be able to get a pumped system out. So all your stormwater is still harvested at the bottom of the block, then pumped out. I'd see that more for your multi-res or something like that.
Bit of engineering in it.
Yeah.
A bit of a cost in engineering, but I mean, it's a good result. Nice and easy.
And for like alterations and additions, you might be able to get away with an infiltration pit on the site. So all the stormwater gets harvested on site. Sometimes it can be a combination of some water tanks that have
gardens and stuff like that.
Yep. They have slow release valves as well, so water's constantly going into these infiltration pits to slow down the amount of water getting captured at once.
Like the waterway in Newcastle at the moment, they've got the leaky tank space. So once it gets too high, the tank kind of leaks a little bit and runs the water out into to a wet area space. But yeah, rain gardens can be beautiful too. Like, it depends on how they want to do it. But a rain garden's just a quite a simple pit or a swale, like just a bit of a ditch. Have like a couple of pebbles, a couple of rocks, and some nice Australian natives that kind of suck up that water, kind of manages it and kind of gets rid of it properly.
Yeah. I guess it's worth touching on the absolute worst case scenario. Your council don't like the idea of a pump out system. You're developing something, so an infiltration pit won't quite do the job for the amount of dwellings that you're putting on site. Council could see that your rear neighbour, there's a road backing onto your rear neighbour, and they go, you've got the potential to create a new easement through their land and then drain all your water through their land onto the street curb on that side.
So that's
tricky.
Yeah, so that opens a huge Pandora's box, right? Like, because once
hours on that one.
Yeah, if you start looking at easements in other people's blocks, you got to ask them, how much is this easement to drain water running through your block worth to you?
Yeah.
And then usually we find something like that when there's a parent block or a massive block that's been split up into multiple little blocks. And back in the day when it was split, then nobody ever cared about where the water went, so there was never an easement included in that split. So yeah, what would happen is, if you're the poor homeowner that's going to have to pay for that easement to go in, 9 times out of 10, your next door neighbours are going to want to benefit from that same easement.
Yeah.
So then you'd have to start talking. You'd have to start talking to your next door neighbours. You'd have to talk to the bloke behind you. You'd have to start doing a bit of legwork to try and find out. And then I dare say whoever has that block that you're going to run this easement through kind of has a blank check almost. They can say, well, you know what, like this is how much this part of my block's worth, and this is what I want.
Yep. Well, actually, before we move on, I think it's worth mentioning why this is an issue in the first place. Because I guess when some older blocks were subdivided in the first place, you've got sewer lines running through the properties. You used to be able to connect your stormwater into your sewer lines, which is where we come unstuck because since then, I can't remember when it was, maybe last 10, 15, 20 years or so, the laws have changed. So you can't drain your stormwater into the sewer connections anymore.
Can't even do the pools either.
No. So all of a sudden you've got these blocks that used to be able to drain into stormwater. You're doing a small addition, may even be a deck or a roof. The whole house is currently going to the sewer, but you might be adding one downpipe, but you can't connect that one downpipe into that sewer. It's got to go its own infiltration pit or charge up to the street. But that's where the issue comes from. It's because you used to be able to do it to the sewer, so you didn't need easements to drain water.
Yeah, so like we've come unstuck so many times with that. Like we try and be clear and say, hey, listen, we'll just connect the stormwater to exactly where it's going right now, and then it's like, wait, can't do that.
Yep.
You have to do it properly.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good question.
All right. How do you balance aesthetics with practical constraints like budget and site limitations?
Oh, yeah, hitting us hard today. Do you want up first?
Yeah. So I think this really comes down to when you get your builder involved, or when you start talking to the builder and the designer, for that matter too, about what the budget is. To a degree, as designers, we can work with a budget and give good direction for the project to go in, keeping that in mind. And then definitely at concept stage, getting a builder involved, speaking about your budget with the builder, with concept plans that are already, they don't need to be finalised, but concept plans that are taking the project into the direction that you want it to head in. And really it's about getting the feedback from the builders, I guess site constraints as well, finding out what your limitations are, but getting as much feedback on the concept as you can early on in the piece, and then I guess using that feedback to make sure the budget's looked after and you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. So I agree. We've spoken about it countless times on the previous episodes. It's communication's always key. Finding a good team, getting a good understanding of what you're asking for and how much you want. I think keeping a realistic expectation is incredibly important as well. Like you can't just say, hey, listen, I'm going to go flat ceilings, standard trusses to high ceilings, cathedral ceilings, extra skylights and things like that. As designers, we're here to support a design, and I guess as the crew that we are, we design, and we can nominate or at least hit within a certain range or pretty close to, what it would fall out at a kind of a cost. I think kind of. Obviously getting the builder involved in is always important, but ideally when we say that we can meet a number or meet a budget, we first pay attention to structural design. Like we got to make sure if it's a reno, how many walls are we moving, how many wet areas are moving, all of our expensive movements, a roof's changing, a water area's changing. These are the big questions that will add that extra coin. While we pay attention to those and while we try to assess and try and make the right calls on them, since I guess the labor shortage, or since the trades shortage, costs of construction and materials and all that kind of stuff have just shot through the roof. So even though, back when I was out on site, I could pretty much get pretty close, bang on to the numbers. Even before COVID, we could get pretty close to the numbers. Now it's just a matter of, hey, get a good builder, trust that he's a good builder, trust that he's going to look after you. Do your due diligence as well. Check it, and then maybe you know, there are quantity surveyors, there are people and estimators and things like that that can actually also look at the numbers. So they're also a great resource. But at the end of the day, quality control, due diligence. Make sure you've got a realistic expectation.
That's what I was going to say. I think setting realistic expectations at the beginning is important too. Like if we're talking early days, site visits, consults, and things like that, finding out what the budget is, what they're trying to do with that budget, and like we'll know straight away if someone's only got 150,000, but they want to add a second story addition, and they want to
you get a staircase.
Who knows? But like we'll know pretty early on whether it's feasible, if you've got the room, or if it's a bit, that might not be a healthy budget for how far you want to take it.
It's on us as designers as well to be like, you're a bit light on. You're probably expecting a little bit too much for what you're looking for. And while we can give a number, it's not always going to be accurate, and it's always important to double check for sure. That's a good question. Why should I choose a draftsperson over or against an architect?
Gonna ruffle some feathers here.
You first.
Without getting in trouble. Do you think there is a big difference between the two?
You're answering your question with a question.
I am.
You're dodging so hard. Yeah, look. I think an architect. To be absolutely clear. I've done my degree. You went through the TAFE system. I firmly believe that you came out of TAFE with a little bit more industry planning knowledge, so to get you through the council process. I think that's what the TAFE system has really done, and really looked after you guys really well. I think obviously a great architect's always going to do great things. They're always going to be they're great architects and draftspeople will always work really well together if they get a good, strong relationship. Choosing one over another, though, I think it depends on how in depth you want the job to go. A draftsperson will be naturally cheaper because they are there structurally. They might be a great designer. They absolutely might be a great designer. But at the end of the day, they 9 times out of 10 don't offer the full down to the nth degree detailed design. So they might not choose, what kind of timbers, or they might not choose the patterns. They might not choose. These are the drafties. The drafties might not choose, what you're doing with the kitchen, or curtains or anything like that. They would have a service outside of that. Whereas an architect, you would expect to get that level of information. You would expect to have that level of finish. They would have gone through and thought about absolutely everything. How the curtains are falling, what kind of taps you're going to have, and then the con of that is sometimes because the architects have put such a massive effort in there. Obviously, they're going to be charged. They're more expensive. They're going to probably add that extra zero on there, but it's very hard to change an architect's mind. And I think that's obviously not all of them. Like that, I'm not saying that they're all like that, but I mean, because they've put such an effort into the process, and because you've paid them to do this job and to every single minor detail, they are going to want to hold on to every single one of those details. And one of the things, and one of the interesting things, I guess, about design, when you change a small detail or when you change something, it's a domino effect. And then we say it time and time again, even when we're training our own guys, they change a small thing and they really like how something's happened, or a client says, I really love that, I want to keep that, but I want to change the rest of the house to suit that. Then all of a sudden you've ruined the whole flow of the whole design, all because of this one small change. So if you put that in towards, an architect where they've put weeks, months into like the nth degree of a design, and all of a sudden, a tap changes, or, they're asking for a gooseneck or a wall mounted or something like that. All of a sudden, the whole vibe changes, the whole look changes, and then it's not it's not the same. So getting an architect to follow up and I guess doing those designs, they absolutely have a spot. They absolutely have a spot. But in terms of cost-effective design, I think a good drafting team that you can get to look after a commercial fit out or a residential design, cost-effective, easy to work with.
Yeah, I think we could probably go to splitting that a step further, because you can get like there are drafties out there who are good at drafting. So if someone goes to them and says, I know exactly what I want, and they will draw the plans and not have too much of a design input. So I'd almost go a step further to say, designers and architects, to a degree, will do a similar level of work. And sometimes if you want to go to a drafty,
that's more logical.
They may only do the drafting and go, well, this is what you've asked for.
These are the legit numbers. This is what's compliant. This is what fits. These are absolute numbers.
Yeah, and I think ideally you almost want to I feel like where we fit in is somewhere in between the two, or we definitely do the design and do everything like that. We obviously do the drafting and things like that as well. But I think, it's tricky. I think balancing the two, drafties can be good designers, and architects can be good drafties.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think what's the best about the MT design is that we've got a nice even split of architects and drafties. We've and no one is better than each other. We all have that same input. We all know what's comfortable, and that's why we've got such a big team, because I don't want to have all the answers, and I mean there was once upon a time where you and I would just have just a back and forth about what we think would work best. But now that we've got a whole team of people that have come from different backgrounds, there's just people have their flavors and people have their good bits, and I think that's what makes a good relationship with a client or with a homeowner that's looking to develop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, design is so subjective. And I mean, I feel like it's our jobs as designers to either interpret what the clients are after, and then go this is how we get what you want, or what you want to get out of your space or your design, and this is how the direction we get heading towards, and then obviously taking on board what the clients like or don't like, whether it's Hamptons or not.
Yeah, nice one.
My block has come back as fire rated. What is the process, and what might the cost be? I think by fire rated, I think what this person's asking is it's come back within a fire zone. The preliminary reports have come back saying I'm in a fire area.
Whatever the level, 19, 29, 40.
Yeah, yep. So I guess we could start the higher the BAL rating. So if you're in a bushfire area, you can have a BAL low, which means there's no requirements, depending on how close to the hazard that you are. You got 12.5, 19, 40, and then flame zone. Obviously, the higher the rating, the more expensive that it's going to be to build within that area.
The more things you have to put in place, like fire safety and I guess burn time that they like to call it. So, yeah. So yeah, that's a how long's a piece of string kind of question.
It'd be good to get to get one of the builders in again and talk to them about that.
Or about a fire consultant. I think
yeah. Find out what construction costs would be from a maybe a flame zone is going to be your top end, external shutters, toughened glazing. There's a whole range of things that'll come with it, but it'd be good to understand from them what the
cost implications.
The cost implications could be.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of quite small conversations that I've had with some of the builders. Sometimes they can add upwards of 30 to 50 grand, because you're putting, depending on how high the fire system is, it's you got to put steel mesh over the windows. You got to put Q-line seals under the doors. It's when it comes to the BAL rating or the fire rating, it's how much safety do you have in place that if there was a fire, how much time do you have to get out of the house without getting caught in it. At 100, like in Australia, we need it. Like we do need it, and unfortunately, it is a necessary
hurdle
that everyone has to deal with.
Yeah,
I think when they find out what the bow rating is, I think it's important to really consider what they're going to make their house out of. Like, it's got to be masonry. Obviously, higher it is, it's got to be, fire resistant. There's a whole plethora of problems that come with the higher bow ratings, and it's not, and sometimes when somebody gets a fire rating or when they find out the bow, they're like, oh, I've got nothing but grass and you can't see my bushes for 100 meters, and that bush is that's just shrub. But what they fail to mention is that that it's just not up 100 meters. It's the dense bushland. There's a degree of fall that comes into play as well, because fire goes up, and if you're sitting up a hill,
it's going to run straight up.
It's going to go straight up, and that's just how quick you've got. So, unfortunately, yes, there's been episodes and episodes of us ragging on the fire guys, but at the end of the day, it is a safety thing. I think there could be some better reforms, or a little bit of maybe a bit of understanding, or maybe some support in some designs or something like that, or maybe some managed land, because I know there's a lot of managed land opportunity, particularly for asset protection zones or the bushfire zones, that there are things that people can do, particularly with the housing market and the crisis that everybody's in, trying to house everybody. I think there could be maybe just a little bit more attention to what we can do to potentially do a performance solution, even, I think, to design for houses that might be in these bushfire zones, because while we're trying to keep these while we're trying to keep the bushes and all the forestry and things like that, it is starting to take a real toll, I guess, on design, particularly for the increase of the population that we're trying to deal with.
Yep. In particular for anywhere where you're increasing residential density is what the RFS will call it. So secondary dwellings, dual occupancies, or even just subdividing land, your maximum BAL rating is BAL 29. So if you're looking at doing any of those types of things and it's the bushfire affected, the first thing would be to get a bushfire consultant involved early on in the process to find out what the rating's going to come back at. Whether there's ways that you can, if it's a new build, you can potentially move further away from the hazard to get a lower rating or things like that. But I guess the first thing would be knowing, if you're in a zone, what the likely rating will be. And then I guess from there, construction wise, what the cost is going to be, or if developing wise, whether it's going to put a halt to things.
Yeah, because if the fire level's too high, you can't add those extra dual locks. You can't add load to the residential density. So yeah, I think there's a lot of problems when it comes to bushfire spaces, but I think at the end of the day, yes, it is absolutely needed. There are costs to it. But it's how long's a piece of string, and we can throw a number at it, but it'll never be correct. And at the end of the day, the RFS or council might say something different.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, this might be our last one, I think.
Yep.
And we'll have to do another ep.
Yep.
We'll do the bucket questions. The FAQs another ep. How do I balance this? How do I balance, or where should I spend my money when renovating? So yeah, I think we've touched on that a couple of times tonight, particularly because a lot of these questions will be how much. We're always going to be asking, what's it going to cost me if we do this? And it's a good question. Everyone's got a budget. It doesn't matter what you do. Everyone's got a budget. I think managing a cost in renovation, I think you could probably prepare yourself to the nth degree about how much you want to spend on your reno. But at the end of the day, until those walls come down, until those piers get looked at, until that slab gets checked, until those trusses get looked at, it's up in the air. Like, it will always be up in the air. Like, there's always a contingency. Builders will always charge more for a renovation because they don't know. They don't know what's going to be under the house. They don't know if there's going to be wood rot. You don't know. Like, there could be white ant damage, and your house, like the house that you're about to reno, it could be looking absolutely perfect, and there's been no problems. All the while, white ants or termites have had the last 5 years feasting on your studs, and then when one of those studs come out, the rest of the house will come down. You know what I mean? Like, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, that's a very, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but I mean, that's worst case scenario. Obviously, like you can always budget, but I mean, obviously, you can always kind of assume a cost or a cost per square meter, but in its most basic form, I think if you're going to try and budget or try and organize your money for a renovation, I think paying attention to where your wet areas are. If you're on bearers and joists, it's a lot easier to move a wet area or chuck an extra couple of extra piping through, a subfloor than it is through a concreted area. Like, if you've got a slab, then you're chopping up the slab. It's going to cost you a whole lot more. There's a lot more labor in it. But yeah, wet areas are going to cost you the money. Your roof system, or what you're adding to your roof, is going to cost the money. Your kitchens are going to cost. A kitchen, a bathroom. Kitchen's going to be 40 to 50 grand, and like a good one. A bathroom's going to cost you 20 to 30 grand. Like, they're the expensive things. You know what I mean? And that's not taking into account any extra engineering or any extra things that you're going to need to worry about regarding your flooring or your wall system. Your finishes, it's really hard. I think it's really hard to say, hey, listen, I'm gonna go and do a renovation. I'm gonna be really stoked with this, and then you put all this effort in there. It's gonna look really great structurally, and then all of a sudden you go, well, I actually really want that $50 a square meter tile over the allowed $25 a square meter tile. And when you're doing 100 square meters, that's a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like, so it's the finishes that you have to kind of pay attention to. It's the mostly the finishes. The 9 times out of 10, if like most things get caught before the build starts, so you kind of get a good understanding of where it's going to sit. But I think the finishes is where everyone kind of gets unstuck, particularly with the variations and where the money comes from, because you get everyone does it. You get distracted by the shiny stuff. If you're emotionally invested in your home and you're going to spend the rest of your time there, you're going to see that tap and you're going to go, you know what? I'll spend $1,000 on that tap because I'm going to be here for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But that's where all your money goes. Your tiles, because they're going to look nicer. Your taps, because they're going to look nicer. Everything is going to be more because you want that look. And I think that's just where a lot of self-restraint and a lot of consideration has to go into your colors and your color choices.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of balance to find out what I think it really comes down to what you want to get out of it, out of the space. Like, if you're doing a renovation and you're a growing family, you need an extra bedroom, you would like an extra children's activity, and you want an ensuite like that. Like, we see that scenario a lot.
Open plan living, knocking walls out, and things like that.
Yeah. But if you know what you're trying to get out of it and you've got a budget in mind, I think there's a few ways that you can make sure that you manage those costs early on. It's making sure that you've designed for what the space is being used for. This is my personal opinion with it. But if you're designing for how you're going to use the space, you can always update things later on, do phases of the construction as well. But for me, you can, if you've got that extra bedroom, bathroom, and activity room, and you're able to do it within budget, and then 5-10 years time, you want to, update these things or, really, spruce it up a little bit. You've always got that option there. So, form over the level of finish is, I think that's where the balance is, or where it's important to know what end of that balance you want. Do you want high end, but maybe not quite all the extensions you want, or do you want all of the space and the use that you want for a lower finish level?
Yeah, so you bring up an incredibly good point. Staging a build is always a good way to manage or mitigate some costs. I think creating or using that opportunity of having like a master plan, if you will, like if you have that master plan and say, righto, in 10 years time, this is how I want my house to finish.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to deal with it, because you can just go, yeah, I've got that 150 grand now. Let's just chuck it in there. Let's get that done. Let's get happy. Let's get comfortable with that. And then we'll just take chips out of it. Yeah. And I think a fun thing, or a really great thing, I think, in particular for council and things like that, once you get that DA approval, you've got 5 years to kick that off. And if you've, 5 years is a long time, and that's just to kick it off. But once that DA is started, and by that I mean you get the construction certificate and you've got the construction certificate approved, you've pretty close got almost as long as you need to finish it. So you can take those chunks out. You don't have to put the pool in straight away. You can do the structural stuff. You can put that extra bedroom in. You can do the necessities, the extra bathroom, the kitchen, and you can spend that 150 grand. And then add that extra space on that back wall. Make that living space a bit bigger.
Yeah, and add the deck on 5-10 years down the track instead of right now.
Yeah, and it's going to save. Like if you go that method, it's going to save the client that extra application to council. That's going to save them those extra reports. It's going to save them all the bits and pieces that otherwise they would have spent again to do the same application later. And well, again, obviously there's the danger of even if they do the design and they do the master plan, if they go to change their idea later, there is a mod and things like that. But assuming they don't change their idea in the next 5 or 6 years and they're absolutely happy with the design, it's a no-brainer. They're going to save money every day. They save money every day. Yeah. So there's many ways to save and I guess mitigate the costs. I think it's just a good idea to first kind of understand what you need. I think necessity absolutely first, look second, and then time. I think a big thing is being upfront with a builder or the designer as well with the budget. You can't tell a builder or a designer, hey, I've got a $200,000 budget. I've got a $200,000 budget to do an extension or an open plan living, and then expect to have something really nicely done, because you're never going to get it. That person is going to go into that design expecting to do a 60 square meter design or a 60 square meter addition or something like that with an open plan living, new kitchen and bathroom. You're not going to get that for $200,000. It's just not going to happen. But if you're upfront, you're honest with the builder, honest with the designer. I understand holding your cards a little bit closer to the chest, because you don't want to say, "Hey, I've got $400,000 to spend on this reno," and then some guys might hit you for that 400,000 because they're like, well, you've got it, you know what I mean? But I think if you, again, great team, good communication, due diligence, reviews, all those kind of checks, if you get a good team behind you and you're upfront and honest and open with how much money you've got to spend on the design, every day of the week, you're going to get a great result.
Yeah. Transparency, like through the entire building industry, like as a client, as a designer, as a builder, like if everyone talks to each other and is upfront with what they need to get out of it, it's just going to make everyone's lives easy. The clients are going to get the products that they want. It's going to get a lot of heartache out of the process, because as we all know, like the whole building thing can be one of the most stressful things that you do.
Daunting. It's daunting,
start to finish.
Yeah, and like at MT Design, one of our things are like, we don't live in your house like that. Your house is not our house. Our job is to make sure that you're comfortable and happy in your house the way you want it. Our job is to make sure that we're doing it the compliant way and the right way, so you're going to be comfortable. Like, and not just MT Design, but any designer, any drafty, or any architect even, they should be listening to the client's requests and their wants from their homes and working towards what they want and ultimately want to achieve in either the short term or the long term within a budget, and with transparency and with a bit of grace.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what the podcast is all. What's all happening for? Just to open that up.
Yeah, open the conversation up. Transparency, conversation, for sure. Well, guys, I've still got half a bucket of heaps of questions, so we could go all night. But in in the essence of keeping you guys listening and coming back, we'll leave it for another night. So thanks again, Mitch. We'll see you back on the lounge or the beanbags.
Beanbags.
Another night. Catch up.
Do it again.
Thanks for listening to this week's ep of the lounge. To make sure you don't miss out on the next episode, hit subscribe. We'd love to get the message out to more homeowners like you. Make sure you leave a rating and a review, and we'll see you on the next ep.